We are shooting in low light situations. And so whenever the sun goes below the horizon or near there, that's the perfect time to use constant light or available light. Now, in this case, you can look around your environment and find some lights, especially if you're in a downtown city area, to use as your light. And I love using window light because it creates such big and soft light on my subject. And so I'm gonna expose for her, and there's gonna be lights in the background, either cars or city lights. And so she's gonna be kind of sandwiched by two lights, the window lights and then also the cars in the background. I'm shooting at a low f-stop at 1.8 so I can blur out the background and create those kind of light balls behind her, which look really cool. Okay, so I'm gonna use this light here and kind of as a leading line, and you always wanna have the nose towards the light, and that way her face is illuminated and looks awesome. And so right now, I've got some great shots, and I've got her sandwiched between two light sources. And so she's right in the middle of those two light sources, this light source and the cars coming behind her. Perfect. That looks good. And then one thing about using constant light, you can just kind of keep your shutter on repetitive, and you don't have to wait for any light to recycle or anything like that. So I'm shooting it two ways. I'm shooting it landscape, which is sideways, and then up and down, which is portrait. And then also, I always like to just kind of vary and even get really close. Can you put your head close to this? Yeah, I'll actually move back just a tad, and then so basically what I'm doing now is I'm using her reflection, and the more the lights, the better. There's some blinking lights behind her, which look really great. So this is an awesome lesson in using the light that's given to you. It's like a little nugget of gold again, right? You find a nice window, has beautiful light on it, and you can use that to your advantage. As long as you have your subject's nose pointing towards the light, you can't go wrong, and you're gonna get an amazing image. When shooting in low light, one thing that I know always is a slam dunk is looking for lights behind your subject. This creates an amazing effect if one, you use a long lens, and two, you use a low f-stop. Three, the closer you get to your subject, the bigger those light balls behind your subject are gonna look. So what you gotta do is get at least a 50 millimeter 1.8. If you can shoot at 1.2, that's great. But generally 1.8 is good enough for me, just to make sure that I have everything in focus. If you shoot too shallow and you get really close to your subject, one eye might be in focus and the other eye might not be in focus. And so anyways, how I set this up is I set my exposure for my background. So those lights, however bright I want them to look in my background, I set my exposure for that. There's no right or wrong answer. Some people like it brighter, some people like it dramatic and will close it down a bit, but you get it the way you want it. You have your lovely subject. I have Olivia here. You place her here, and then when you don't have the light, she's gonna look dark like this, okay? Now you're gonna have to add your video light to balance the exposure, right? So generally your exposure on the face and on the body should sort of equal the exposure in the back. I like to have my exposure and my lighting on my subject a little bit brighter than the lighting that's on the back, okay? That way my subject is brighter than my background. So let me go now, take some amazing shots and show you how amazing this is gonna look. All right, so good. Let's have her pose there. And I'm gonna start off waist up, and I'm gonna shoot slightly up so I can get those shots of those lights right behind her. Right here looks good. Awesome. Turn your body a little bit to the side. That way, yeah, good. Now her body can face the light because she's wearing dark. And so it's not gonna overexpose or underexpose. So basically, when your subject is wearing dark and the complexion is lighter than what she's wearing, you could have your body and the face towards the light. In this case, if I turn her body away from the light, the clothes will kind of fade into the background. So I'm having her body turned towards the light and also her face, and it looks great. To summarize what we just did is, one, you gotta look for a location where you see a lot of lights in the background. The more, the better. Man, when you see that, you've got an awesome shot. Use a shallow depth of field on your lens. Use the longest lens that you've got. A prime lens usually works best. 50 millimeter, 85 millimeter, 135 millimeter, and that's what I'm using here. Put that f-stop down to 1.8 or lower. And then when you focus on your subject and those bright lights are in the background, you're gonna get these beautiful bokeh balls. And the closer you get to the subject, the larger those bokeh balls are gonna get. So have fun with it, shoot it, expose your background first, put your light on your subject to equal that background light or slightly brighter, which I do, and shoot it different lengths. Go waist up, go shoulders up, and go full length. And also change your camera position between landscape and portrait. And I guarantee you, if you look for these bright lights in the background and use this method, you are gonna get some amazing portraits. That looks awesome. That looks beautiful. That's great. Looking in my environment, I'm trying to find some natural lighting, and windows at night are great sources of light. So this is like a huge softbox here. So I have this light coming in, and I positioned them so the light was shining on their face. And I'm using this actually rail right here to create a leading line right to them. And the background is beautiful because it has this steel that adds lit up with the night lights, and it's gonna create some amazing background with it. And what I did was take a little bit of video light to create some rim light around their head. The intensity of the lighting is at a pretty low setting, I would say medium. And I just want to create some separation light for them because they have dark hair. And so if you don't put some rim light around their hair, it's gonna blend into the background. So this little separation light allows the subjects to pop out a bit more and separate them from the scene. So when you're in a low light setting, one great idea is to use the existing lights that's there. And here it was just like a huge softbox. I lit my subject up with this beautiful light, created some rim light, and I had a beautiful background behind them, and it was a stunning photo. And so I think it creates a great shot because they're highlighted. And so if you, I'll have them posed right here, right? And I'm gonna move that light back a bit, Debbie, so because I'm going wide here. And so this is a really great, interesting backdrop, and they're lit up. And I'm gonna actually move you over here because I wanna shoot this area here. So I have this light from the window here, and which lights them perfectly, but I'm gonna add a little video light there, and I'm gonna get this leading line against them. Okay, so perfect, go ahead, go for that right there. I love that right there. Oh my gosh, looks so romantic. I'm gonna take a lower angle so I can accentuate and give them more of a hero feel. And what I need to do is get that light high so I can create some shadow on them. Oh gosh, gorgeous. I'm gonna put this blue in the background there. And I know that there's some cranes right there right now, but I'm gonna get those out in Photoshop so I could really accentuate that sky. And I'll take a few without it, just in case. And go back a little bit, Debbie, and move over that way just a tad. Beautiful, and I love it. Oh my God. Serena, smile. You know, I gotta give it to Brad. He's got the most awesome smile. Is that why you married him? Marrying him? Gosh, you guys look great. I am keeping my eyes open to see what kind of lighting there is existing. And I saw this beautiful highlight right here. So I go, you know what? If I put my subjects there, they're gonna be lit for me. And so I just needed a bit more light on them. So I added a video light through an umbrella. And I've got this beautiful geometric composition where a leading line coming down right at them and it set them up for a beautiful backdrop, giving me a great shot. In regards to lighting, I don't need a lot of light. I have to match the lighting on my subject with the same lighting that's in my background. And those are just, you know, night lights. So you set your background first to make sure that your lights are not blown out. You set up your subject, they will be dark, and then I just bring in my video light as needed. I'm turning my video light on full. It's about a couple thousand lumens, and I'm putting it through an umbrella to give me some great soft light. Posing this way, and I got to get them dead center. So if you guys can move in right in the middle right here, perfect. And so I'm going to kind of have them look at each other right here. And now I'm going to take a shot. Let's pull the video light away. So I'm going to show you a before shot, what it looks like without the light. They're completely dark. Okay. So now I'm going to turn this all the way up. And if you guys can put all your weight on that leg there, keep it straight. Good. And come out this way just a bit. I need a, there you go. Step right in and then that's beautiful. That's gorgeous. And put your heads together and look at each other. How's that? Let's try with that. And now I've got beautiful light. Now I need you to move like 2 inches this way. Okay, perfect. Go ahead. Perfect. Right. You're right. Good. Put your heads together. Good. I'm shooting up now. And I've got this shot. I need to see a little bit more Serena's face. There you go. Put your heads a little bit together more right there. Beautiful. And smile. Good. Serena, I need a little bit more smile out of you. Perfect. Now I'm going to do the same shot, but I'm going to get some catch lights in Serena's eyes. So I'm going to put this light right here. And I'm going to have her look at this light so I can see the beautiful catch lights in her eyes. And then Brad, you're going to just look down this way and you're going to try to get your nose at that sweet spot and just put your nose down just a little bit, right? Good. A little bit down lower, Brad, and a little bit closer. Good. Now I need you both to smile. Perfect. And I need to see Serena's face a little bit more. Good. And perfect. Get that light a little bit closer. Good. I got to get it. Oh yeah, there you go. Beautiful. Use a little bit of video light. I'm diffusing it through an umbrella to get some great soft light and set the exposure for the background. And you've got a beautiful shot and it's very easy to do with constant light.